Hello everybody and welcome back. Now if you can remember back to last Friday, I shared with you a video that introduced you to the concept of polarized training. And in that video there was a graph which demonstrated the high intensity work and the low intensity work, and the bit you should be trying to avoid for most of you around the black hole or the threshold zones. Though there was a lot of chatter about that, a lot of discussion, a lot of comments, a lot of questions, and I thought I'd answer some of those today. And one of the questions was, how do you fit this training into your year-round plan? So I'm going to share with you 2 or 3 graphs now. Now it all depends on what sort of season you've got coming up. For some people there will be a 2-peak season. Now what I mean by that is you will have 2 A races spread apart by 2 to 3 months, and this type of season is typical of an athlete who is either trying to qualify for Great Britain age group team or by trying to qualify for the World Championships at the 70.3 or Ironman distance. And in doing so they would have to do a qualification event earlier on in the summer and probably their championship race later on in the summer. So for those people they have 2 races. So I would suggest that from now, or at least from the beginning of January, you'd want to engage in a typical polarized training breakdown. You do 80% of your training at an intensity of less than 80%, probably nearer 70% to be quite honest. You would do between 5 and 10% of your training at greater than 92%, and the rest of the training falls into that threshold zone. It'll be around 10 to 15%, and you'll probably end up in there accidentally as you're riding or running up a hill, swimming with a group, or just drifting into that zone without thinking because you've lost concentration, but certainly not planned training. Now I work out volumes based on total weekly duration, so if you're doing 600 minutes a week, which is 10 hours, then the high intensity work would be somewhere between 30 to 60 minutes or 5 to 10%. But I know that some people also like to use the 5 to 10% as a percentage of the weekly sessions they do. It's up to you which one you choose, and I'm not sure there really is any difference in the long run. All depends on the sort of training you do. So after a block of that training, I'm building the body's neuromuscular skills, some economy from the high intensity training, and fat adaptation and aerobic transportation mechanisms, increased capillaries and increased mitochondria. Then we're going to move on to challenging the threshold. So we do move into that 80 to 92% zone, and we probably spend 25 to 30% of our time there, although that will again depend on the individual and what they can tolerate. Maybe it won't be that much, but you need to find your own levels. All I would say is that when you're doing that, it's quite tiring, so you need to spend still quite a lot of time in the sub 80% zone, and that would be probably at around, again, 65 to 70%, and still some time above 92%, but probably not a specific session now, more a couple of reps within perhaps a threshold session. Okay, now the makeup of the blue box there and the 80 to 92% intensity, if you're doing shorter duration standard or sprint distance races, you probably want to be transitioning to more of than work near a 92% as you get close to your race. But you could start off with lower intensity at 80 to 85% and longer reps and transition upwards. Conversely, if you're doing iron distance or half iron distance events, you might want to start out with some higher intensity work and transition towards longer, lower intensity reps as you get close to your race. So it's specific to race intensity. Either way, at a certain point, you're going to start with the red box. You're going to be tapering. The makeup of the sessions will be similar to what they are in the blue box, but they'll be lower volume. You keep the frequency and intensity up. And after your race, then you would need a percentage of time in your low intensity zone completely, no high intensity work while you recover. And again, the duration depends on your racing. And then we follow a similar pattern to leading up to race 1, but perhaps not quite as long in each block. So back to the fat adaptation and neuromuscular stuff of the polarized training, to a specific concerted threshold training block, and then finally onto a peaking and tapering block. Now in the blue boxes, the What am I thinking here? I've lost it. So I'll come back to that one. I'll remember by the time I get onto the next slide. Okay. So for those of you who have a sample yearly plan, but maybe one peak in your season, probably late on, your plan is very similar, except obviously there's just one race. You start off with a longer polarized training period, and then you come into the blue period. And I've remembered what I was going to say now is that this period would probably be 6 to 9 weeks. Okay, my traditional way of doing schedules is to have 2 weeks of build and 1 week of recovery, so that's a 3-week cycle. So you'd have 2 or 3 3-week cycles in there. If you followed the 3+1 or a 4-week cycle, you might have 1 or 2, but 8 to 9 weeks in total. Probably about 6 actual weeks of threshold work in there, and that would maybe give you 2 to 3 to 4 sessions per week. Okay, so in this model then, we do have a period of easy, a sort of forced mid-season break, because it's a long season. You need to mentally and physically recharge, let your body absorb all the training you've done, then return to the polarized training, a shorter block of threshold training, and into your taper. And then finally, for those people who've got a peak race in the middle of the summer, so maybe around June or July, you'd want to start off with a shorter block of polarized training, a block of the blue work, no recovery period in here. You just go out of maybe 6 weeks of threshold work there, back to a period of polarized training, back to a shorter block of threshold training, and then you go into your taper. Okay, now this is a movable feast. The timings, the length of each block, the percentage of training is down to the individual. There's no set formula, and you may not agree with the way I do things here, but this is what I am finding is working. But I will be experimenting as well to find the best method, and that best method could be in 10 or 12 different formats depending on the athlete and their circumstances. So there's no one answer to all this. Experiment with it yourself by all means. Find the best prescription for you. Have fun doing it. Take a record of the training you do so you can come back to it when you find the one that works. But above all, enjoy your training, enjoy the racing, enjoy the journey, and enjoy learning about what you're doing with your body and how different training methods can lead to different results. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back on Friday, and that time I'm going to be giving you some sample exercise sessions to go in with this polarized training model. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.